I stopped going to church the day the pastor asked us to pray for Starbucks. Apparently, a barista had the gall to write "Happy Holidays" on someone's latte. A latte. This was, according to him, an attack on Jesus himself. Meanwhile, my friend Jake was 3 weeks into sleeping in his car because his parents kicked him out after he came out. No prayer request for Jake, but Starbucks? Oh, we were going to spiritual war. So today, let's ask, what if Jesus is better than Christianity? I'm Theology Jack, your guide in exploring life's biggest questions and mysteries. You ever try to talk about Jesus at a party and instantly regret it? Not because you're embarrassed by Jesus, but because the second you say the J word, people flinch. Not because they hate Jesus, but because they've met his fan club. We've all seen the bumper sticker, "Dear Lord, save me from your followers." And it lands hard because, let's be honest, Jesus would have been banned from half the churches in America. Too political, too brown, too poor, too forgiving. He touched lepers. He flipped tables. He hung out with prostitutes. He ghosted the religious elite. And yet somehow the modern church has managed to make him the mascot for gated communities, purity rings, and billion-dollar empires. That's impressive. Like turning punk rock into elevator music. But here's where it gets more disturbing. Christianity, at least the industrialized, moral majority, flag-waving kind, has become less about following Jesus and more about managing behavior. It's less love your neighbor and more vote the right way. Less bread and wine, more brand and whiteness. Less cross, more control. And maybe you've felt it. That quiet nausea when the church sermon feels like a sales pitch. That ache when the gospels boil down to sin management and afterlife insurance. That rage when your friends are told they're going to hell for who they love while predators preach grace from the pulpit. So yeah, some of us love Jesus and can't stand Christianity. In college, I met a girl named Rachel who wore a tiny tattoo on her wrist. It said, "Theology is survival." She grew up Pentecostal, got out just in time, told me she used to speak in tongues, cry during altar calls, journal her sins in code, said she loved Jesus, still did, but couldn't step inside a church without breaking into a panic attack. "Do you pray?" I asked her once. She nodded, but not to that God. There's a version of God that demands perfection, weaponizes scripture, and hands out shame like it's communion. That God keeps people in line with fear and dangles hell like a carrot on fire. That God doesn't sound like Jesus. Because if you actually read the Gospels, not the church bylaws, not the Instagram theologians, not the TikTok prophecy accounts, but the raw, weird, unsettling Gospels, Jesus isn't safe, but he is good. He forgives before you ask. He heals without prerequisites. He welcomes the outcast. He turns the other cheek and calls out injustice. And yet the brand of Christianity so many of us were handed looks nothing like that. Here's where things started to shift for me. I stopped asking, what would Jesus do? And started asking, what did Jesus undo? He undid systems of religious control. He undid purity hierarchies. He undid tribalism. He undid the need for a middleman between you and the divine. And the people who killed him, they were the religious insiders, the ones with the robes, the scrolls, the titles, the orthodox, the doctrinally correct, the theologically licensed. Jesus was crucified by Christianity's great-grandparents. Think about that. So maybe rejecting Christianity as we know it isn't a betrayal of Jesus. Maybe it's fidelity. Let's zoom out. Religion, in theory, is meant to connect, to bind us to the divine, to each other, to mystery. But institutional Christianity, especially in its Western form, often does the opposite. It divides, it regulates, it builds moats and castles and calls it holiness. What if God never wanted an empire? What if Jesus didn't come to start a religion, but to end the illusion that we needed one? In the open and relational view of God, the one I find myself clinging to more and more, God isn't a cosmic puppeteer or a bureaucratic judge. God is love. Not controlling love, not manipulative love, not love the sinner, hate the sin love. Real love. The kind that doesn't coerce, the kind that weeps, the kind that waits. And Jesus, he shows us what that love looks like in flesh. Bleeding, breaking, betrayed, still choosing love. You can't franchise that. But God help us, we tried. There's a verse, Matthew 7:22, that haunts me. Many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy, drive out demons, perform miracles? And I'll say, I never knew you. What if Jesus was talking to us, to empire builders, to brand protectors, the sermon machine pastors? What if success in church, in the church world, means failure in Jesus' world? What if the ones we call backslidden are actually walking toward him, just not in straight lines? Maybe church trauma survivors are closer to Jesus than we think because they know what it feels like to be rejected by the people who claim to speak for God. And Jesus knows that feeling too. A few years ago, I sat in a church parking lot. It was a mega church. Couldn't bring myself to go in, but I listened to the worship through my cracked window. Somebody was singing, Jesus, friend of sinners. I remember thinking, are we? Are we his friends or just his brand managers? It's not that we need to abandon Christianity entirely. Maybe we need to compost it. Let the toxic parts rot so something true can grow. Something small, weird, wild, like the kingdom Jesus talked about. Maybe God doesn't live in stained glass cathedrals. Maybe she's in recovery groups, in back alley conversations, in tents, in therapy, in TikToks from queer kids explaining why they still pray. Maybe Jesus has left the building and is wandering the streets, looking for the rest of us who love him but can't find him in that empire that bears his name. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading everything and might even include your ideas in a future video. And a quick reminder, click like just to be cool. And hey, if this is your kind of stuff, hit subscribe for more. It helps me so much. Let's map ideas that change the world together. And thanks for watching till the end, fellow explorers. Stay curious and embrace the mystery. This is Theology Jack, signing off.